Okay.
I'm Kira Morgan. Thanks for joining me on Coffee with Kira, sponsored by, there it is, the Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City. And I am excited today to be with Allison Green, Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office. And we, of course, are talking about fire safety. Hi, Allison.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me. And I have my coffee here with me, so we're looking good.
We are good. So, Allison, first of all, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I am the Public Affairs Director at the Office of State Fire Marshal. A little bit about my background. I have been working in fire for probably close to the last 15 years or so. Actually used to fight fire for the Forest Service back in the day when I was young and I could still bramble up hills. And then also I have worked in community organizing and community adaptation, just so folks can get prepared for fire season on the east side of the Cascades where it's very dry. And we tend to have a fire almost every single year. So I've been working in wildfire and wildfire information since I was old enough to get out of the house and cause some trouble.
I love it. So very, very knowledgeable about the subject, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about fire safety. We're heading into, or are in actually, fire season, right?
We are. She came a little early this year, but yes, we are
snuck up on us and it's here.
Yes, we are. We've been experiencing, I think everybody in Oregon felt a little bit like we were in the Wizard of Oz, kind of melting with the heat, but we are certainly right in the middle of fire season.
We are. And like you said, it did come early this year. We're seeing a very dry year, aren't we? Across the state.
Across the state, regardless if we are used to being on the wet side of Oregon or the dry side of Oregon, we had fire season and our first fire kick off on the east side of the Cascades in March this year. So we definitely are behind on our precipitation and our conditions are matching that. The conditions we're seeing now in late June, early July, these are the conditions and the drying we typically see in early August. So we are ahead of schedule, and that is making all of us really kind of make sure our head is on a swivel and that we're all doing the right thing and that we are ready to respond.
So let's talk about some things that folks can do to be fire safe.
So there's quite a few things. So we'll kind of start with prevention, which is kind of the number one piece. Last year alone in 2020, which for us, for Oregon was a rough year. All of it is still really fresh in our minds. But fires that we had last year, 70% of those were human caused. And so that is a big umbrella, right? I mean, that's everything from parking on dry grass, abandoned campfires, debris burns when we're burning our yard debris that escaped our control, and a variety of, kind of human-caused ignitions. So when we're talking about human prevention and human-caused fires, there's something that every single one of us can do, whether that's, you're hauling your fifth wheel out to go camping, making sure those chains are up so they're not dragging and sending out sparks. We're not flicking things out the window while we're driving along, and that we are adhering to recommendations from our fire districts on not burning when it's unsafe, and that if we are camping, that we are putting those campfires out and that they are cold to the touch and dead out before we leave. A lot of times folks, whether we're new to camping, we're in a hurry trying to get out of our campsite, right? We pour a little bit of water and we figure it's good, it's in a ring. It just takes a little bit of wind and those campfires are able to get out of those campfire rings. So that's one of the big causes we saw last year, is really making sure that when we leave our campsites, they're safe and that our campfire isn't going to be the next spark for the next wildfire.
And something important for people to remember is that they can be held liable if it's found that a fire started because of something that they did, right?
That is true. So typically for wildfires, Oregon Department of Forestry is the investigative body. So if they come out, they, do suppression on those fires and they find that folks were, running power equipment in 100-degree weather at 3 o'clock, in the afternoon, or we were doing something that caused that fire, you can be liable for those fire costs. And I mean, that's helicopters, that's trucks, that's
hefty.
personnel, that's the whole kit and caboodle. So it's not only being that good steward and being a good, kind of making sure that we're doing that behavior change, is that there is a liability cost to it.
And let's talk a little bit about beach fires. That's pretty dangerous right now as well.
It certainly is. And so a lot of times, we think beach fires, we're like, it's sand. There's water. I mean, they're like the giant body of water next to us, right? It's not going to go anywhere. But think about when we are, camping, when we are out, wherever we go and enjoy Oregon, anytime you put a new log on the fire, anytime it gets hot and it pops, there's embers that spark from that, right? So a lot of times those embers can carry, they can loft in even the slightest of wind, and then they can land on a receptive fuel bed. I'm not talking about the fuel we put in our cars and our diesel, right? That is grasses, that might be somebody's yard, that might be somebody's roof. So when we're talking about beach fires, what we ask folks to do is to not do that, not use driftwood, not use pallets, not use anything that's flammable. Because not only, I mean, we don't want really horrendous smoke, but at the same time, there is a risk to beach fires and that those are not allowed on Oregon beaches, and because those are state park lands.
And
it is still dry. And even if they are allowed where you're going, we really should be mindful of the fact that it is dry. A lot of places have not had the precipitation that we normally have at this point, that there are some really, really high conditions out there in regards to fire and fire spread and risk. So even after you have some leftover fireworks, you still want to kind of set them off because you're enjoying. Please be mindful that that's probably not the best time to do it. And again, we talked about prevention right at the beginning. This is part of that piece of like, we really need folks to start helping us prevent those human-caused fires, and kind of bring that 70% down than what we saw last year for that human-caused start.
And Allison, these drought conditions and lack of water also make it difficult for the firefighters to be able to have enough resources if a fire should start, correct?
Well, and it's drought conditions and the high heat that we're seeing. Our firefighters are always constantly kind of up against Mother Nature, right? And kind of the worst that she can give us during fire season. And so us seeing conditions that we typically don't see until August, a whole 6 weeks earlier, this is really folks being aware that if we can prevent those human-caused starts, we are helping fight the fire before it even starts. Mother Nature, she can be tough on our firefighters. It's hot, it's dry. If they have to keep carting water back and forth, thinking about them trying to fight that fire, and if we were that cause as the human, we could have stopped them having to go out and fight that fire anyway. I think there was a joke around the office, like 4th of July, like, for firefighters, like, we'd rather not, be invited. We'd rather not come to your 4th of July celebration barbecue. Like, how can we make our firefighters even more effective than they already are? And that is by us preventing those starts, and knowing that we are in a drought, knowing that we are behind on our precipitation and our water. It just makes it that much harder for them when they're fighting against Mother Nature.
All right. Allison, is there anything else that you would like to add as we're wrapping up?
I think the only piece too, we talked a little bit about prevention. The other piece is preparedness for folks, is that Oregon, we do live in a fire adapted ecosystem. Try as we might, we're going to have lightning. We may have wildfires that strike and impact our communities. So this is the time too to take that last kind of look around your property, make sure your home is prepared to withstand a wildfire. So checking your roof for a lot of leaves or needles, making sure your gutters are clear, making sure that your yard is lean, clean, and green. So well irrigated. It's not super high weeds leading right up to the house, and that your family does have an evacuation go kit just in case. A lot of us last year that had never experienced that before, we now know how scary that can be. And so making sure that we are ready to respond to wildfire if it impacts our community, that is that next piece for folks to take into consideration.
And if folks want some more information, is there a website or somewhere that they can go?
They can, for defensible space, they can actually go to firewise.org. Excellent resource for folks on where to start on their home. And for evacuation, they can actually probably go to our Facebook page for Oregon State Fire Marshal. And we have evacuation messaging, prevention messaging, as well as defensible space messaging.
And of course, Keep Oregon Green is always a great resource as well.
Oh man, they are crackerjack.
All right, wonderful. Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kira, again, sponsored by The Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City, located in Newport at 6th Street and Highway 101, and in Lincoln City at the north end of town on the west side of the highway near TLC Credit Union. For Oregon Coast Breaking News, I'm Kira Morgan.